Pretty darn good, buddy.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Barry. It's great. Yeah, fabulous people speeches. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Fantastic. Great. Yeah, I think we're good. Let's put this into gallery mode.
In my opinion, I would say that you traveled in just what I know of you, quite a distance on your journey to explain what's happened to you in your life. Not something I can relate to through my own experience, but certainly in watching you go through what a lot of what you've gone through. Um, do you think you are that much closer to being satisfied with your own explanation of things? Or is there still a ways to go as far as alien contact and things that you still want to learn or at least affirm? I'm not saying you haven't done anything, but have you got a ways to go yet?
Okay, so thank you, Star. Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much. Awesome, thank you, Lori. Okay, so speak specifically to. Are you talking about? You're talking about the. Awesome, thank you, Kayla. Sorry.
Well, your satisfaction I'm talking about, whether
Yeah.
or not you're satisfied with your journey and whether you think you still are
talking about alien contact. You're talking about aliens specifically.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah.
Whether or not you're going to learn more. I mean, when you talk about Greys and their intelligence, they seem way out there as far as, I mean, not that we're not connected to what they're involved in. As you say, we're all connected. But do you think you still have a ways to go? Are you satisfied? I'm asking.
Right. So yeah, when it comes to a level of fulfillment with this, am I satisfied? I'd say I have. So I think for those who know my story, for me, it's very. This isn't just a personal story, right? It's like they're talking about humans. They're talking about the planet. So I think I mentioned it in a chapter 31, 32, chapter 32 with my 24th contact event, 25th contact event, where the elder gave me this imprint, right? So she's, the meteor is coming, save your fellow man. That is in me still. So I actually am not at peace when it comes to the content of alien contact, but or like getting the message out, I guess you could say. I do actually feel the need to talk about it quite a bit. I think I feel kind of on a mission, if you will, that that I was talking to Susie Hansen, and she said, it looks like she's convinced that there's bridgers, people who are meant to bridge, part of the communicator, and that is what this is. This is bridging. And I feel because that's what this is, I therefore have tons of work to do. That's the difference. Yeah, I feel like I got so much to do. And this presentation is just, doing this, talking, having God and the higher self and then aliens all in the same kind of conversation is, I think this is where it goes. I'm personally convinced of that. And yet I don't see a lot of people having that conversation. So, and also, or maybe doing it in a way that's, not too cheesy, right? Like this whole topic, and people don't like this topic. They get all kind of and weirded out, engrossed, and then they kind of want to leave. And so it's a challenge. The whole thing's a challenge. And I have that challenge to put on. So I don't feel complete with that in that regards. As far as me talking about alien contact and letting the world know I've had alien contact, the book did that. So just putting the book out, I feel fulfilled with that. But there is a larger mission, and that mission is not fulfilled. And so that's what these presentations are, and that's kind of the driver for the stuff.
I'd like to congratulate you on how far you come.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you've been there since day one, Barry. Yeah, so I really appreciate it, man. Yeah.
I'm your student, buddy. I'm just listening to what you tell me.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff, Barry. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. Whew. I think last time I had problems. I used the term abduction in your presentation. Dr. Gear likes to talk about how ETs do not abduct people and that it is a UFO subculture and pop media fear-based dialogue. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. I would probably agree with that, except that some people believe they're abducted. And and that's challenging. So it's when the person themselves doesn't feel like they wanted it. And there are people flat out who don't think that they wanted it. They didn't want to be part of this. They didn't want a part of it. And yet they were drawn into it. Now, I would agree that I don't want to offend anybody who feels that way, but I do agree that on the higher levels, I'm so convinced, because that's a big part of my story, is the beings made that a pre-life agreement. I'm so convinced that's the level they're on, and that they're able to do that. They say, okay, before you're born, we're going to have these kind of experiences, and you know, it may change your life or do this. And so I do agree that most people aren't actually being abducted. I'm fully convinced of that. And I might be a bit loose in my language there. And so I actually, because I do kind of, some people still, they just can't frame it. It's so hard with this conversation. So many people don't even believe that it's happening. Number two, they only can believe it's abductions. They can't even just saying this out loud. Oh, it's not. I had a contact event and I was okay with it, and I kind of moved forward with it, and I agreed to it. These ideas are just so far out for humans and for people. So to have the dialogue is very challenging, and so sometimes I might be flippant about that, about those kind of words. But for me, it was always a contact event and something that I had agreed to in the past, and I do believe that is the case with all people. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Hey Mark, yeah. Oh, that's great. How can I learn from a spiritual teacher or guru? Where can I go? Any info you can provide? When the student is ready, the teacher comes. Yeah, when the student is ready, the teacher comes. That's what my line is to that. And in the meantime, keep learning, and you can use images, man. You can use these people, these other gurus who are known gurus, or ancient symbols, Krishnas and Jesus, or you can put them together, and they all in the core do represent the same thing. And I would recommend going down that road of trying to use those images. That's what I do. I have a guru and I use an image, and it works. It works. I know it works. And so I do recommend that people find that path, and there are people out there who are publicly doing that, and you can use them. I won't name names because it's really it has to be you, it has to be the individual. And certain teachers you will gravitate towards certain teachers while other people won't, and vice versa. So it's a personal choice. I could never say that you should follow someone or anything like that. You have to do that for yourself. Hi Jeff, I know you mentioned this in a previous presentation, but could you please give the approximate timeline of the meteor? Listen, that's a meteor, right? I have no idea what's going on here. I won't be that contactee that will say, this time and that time. Mainly because I believe the beings do have a perspective of the future, but I'm convinced they're just like us. There's a certain perspective that is probabilities. It's living in the world of probabilities. And I don't know. And you know, the truth is about that meteor thing, it was so intense for me when I actually had those memories in that 26th in the 24th, 5th contact event where she gave that to me. And then I just had nothing but dreams and dreams and dreams afterwards about these meteors. All of that ended when the memories came out. So it just got replaced with great waves. So I don't know what they're doing, man. And the reality is that motivated me. So it's a part of the subconscious. It was a part of the process. Now I can't speak about the future. And I know, Lori, I actually just don't even want to. I don't want to speak on the behalf of those type of things. And I just don't know what they're thinking, and I don't know what's going to happen. And other people, I heard who's this new contactee that came out, Preston Dennings, Dolly was mentioning a sun flare, and that the sun flare is going to cause destruction. So I don't know. I don't know if this stuff is playing on us to motivate us, or it is, or these are real events and their life changes. I presume they're real, and I presume they're life changes. And how much the degree of the beings are actually fully in control of them or not is actually unclear to me too. And so can't offer timelines. I'm sorry, Laurie, but I appreciate the question though. Thank you. Hey, Norm.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks very much for the presentation. Very grateful to hear what your thoughts are and perceptions. And a number of questions have arisen, but one I'm curious about more so than others. In terms of telepathy, is it possible that telepathy between a transmitter and receiver can exist in the dream state? And if it can, what are its limitations in the time-space continuum?
Funny enough, I haven't had any experience with that, but the article that I drew from in my presentation, where I say telepathy has been proven, is two scientists doing it across the planet. So, and that just makes sense. So it's all focus. There's no space. This is what it is. There's no space, and it's all focus. So if you can focus on the spot that you're trying to project telepathy to an individual, if you are trying to tune into a certain specific person and you know how to do that, without a doubt, there's no space, and you can communicate with telepathically with that individual. Yeah.
But that would suggest there's a certain resonant frequency that we must tune to make that transference or that download of information.
It's a focus, yes. Yeah.
It's the focus. How do we determine that? How does we find out to what extent we're able to convey some form of telepathy?
Yeah, the being state. So I talked about the being state is the key. So you're an energy form, and you have to get to that core. So the white room, that's that stuff that I talked about. You are a being, and you get familiar with this. It's no different than exercise, no different than lifting weights. You can't lift 100 pounds at first. Eventually, you can get better at lifting 100 pounds. Why? Because it's conditioning the brain. The brain is also a muscle. So you get used to those experiences. So you have to kind of create that subjective evidence. Okay, right. When I'm in this state of consciousness, or I'm feeling this being state, and I'm in this raised state, I had this success with telepathy. And then you can use that as kind of a grounding in a frame of reference. You're eventually able to learn how to tune in to certain frequencies, certain people. So in the case of a person, let's say it's an individual, you could bring up the consciousness or the feeling of the consciousness of that individual because you are friends with them maybe. And then using that's your focus, that's your resonance, that's your tuning in. And then you can project telepathy to them. Now, are they receptive is the whole other game to that too, right? But yeah, you got it. But this is all the brain. Remember, there was that picture of the brain. The whole point is that if the brain hasn't experienced something, then it doesn't know what to tune into. It doesn't have that frame of reference. But the consciousness does have the access. It just has to create a sense of focus behind it. And if you don't know what the focus is, then it gets confusing, and we can't hold that. But it is all about that. Learning and finding that spot, that sense of focus on that frequency, and that takes time, and that is required to become familiar with that inner world and getting that subjective evidence.
Just like the blue dot between the eyebrows.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah,
Thanks,
that is what it is, man. It's I will always. This is why all there's a thing called a book called the Masters of the Far East, and that's the idea, right? You have just these. The gray aliens are masters of the Far East, right? Like it's basically that level that's how they handle the human brain. I'm not saying gray aliens do that, because I think their biology is different and their brains are different, and they know how to get into those states without it. But the human needs that. The human needs something that you're doing to move the brain out. And this is why I'm so convinced the beings like Buddhism. They trained Whitley Strieber to meditate. They talked about spirituality with other contactees. It seems so common that they talk about spirituality, and they really liked my stuff because they really are aware humans need to be conscious of their brains and needed to make exercises to handle the brain. And then when you do that, you can get into spaces of tuning into frequencies much easier. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem. Great. Awesome. Brian.
Yeah, well, that's another profound talk like your other 15 previous talks. I want to ask you about, you talked about remote viewing and focusing on a point and projecting like a body on a craft, like you and Susie Hansen described these kind of city-sized craft that are above the atmosphere. And I'm assuming there's more than one. So would it be possible to project yourself onto one of these craft as a manted being or as a gray and practice and practice and practice and maybe visit a craft in a body like that?
I do think that. I think when their world is so off from humans. So you're not going to get it reading it in a book, and you're not going to get it. There's no book that actively contains the vibration of these beings. I think we're all using human descriptions to describe their world. But I think if you've had contact, yes, because then you know how to tune into it. And I do agree with that. And if you have that kind of inherent identification with gray aliens, which is what, the dual soul thing, right? Where people sometimes feel that they've been an alien in the past life, or vice versa, they can go on to craft and they can become an alien. I'm convinced that they are internalizing that identification. They know that kind of consciousness state or frequency or the being state of the aliens. And then when they're there, they can do that if they know how to do it consciously. 100%, I do believe that. I don't think I actually know average humans who cannot tune into the beings. And I'm convinced it's because they know how to keep themselves hidden. And I am also, and I don't just mean with like obscuring technology. I really think a lot of this stuff is just frequencies, right? It's consciousness frequencies. And so when the beings expose you, then you have that kind of awareness, then you have the ability to connect with them. If you don't, then they become obscured. And I think they do that on purpose. And so, yeah, that's, so if you did have the contact event, I think without the contact event, maybe people can do some versions of connecting with crafts and stuff. And yeah, maybe some versions of the beings who want that do allow that. And so they make that easy for them. Yeah, I do believe that.
That's really profound. It's like you're opening up a whole new dimension in terms of our practice, just to even imagine that you can project your consciousness onto a craft and manifest a body. So gotta thank you for it. Like in Buddhism, that would be kind of like in Tibetan Buddhism, a secret from the guru,
Yeah.
To visualize a deity kind of thing. It's kind of, or in Vedic practice.
I think in Mary's book, I haven't read it fully or completely, but her book, The New Human, has someone who goes on to crafts. He sees the lights, has contact events, has the markings, but also in an embodied form goes on to crafts. So out of body form goes on to crafts. Yeah. And so that seems actually really common in the phenomenon. And that would be exactly what's going on there. Yeah.
Thank you. A whole new technique to try. I should mention that Barry doesn't know, he can't use the raise hand feature, so he has a hand on his ear. Because on his computer, he can't use the raise hand feature, so he puts it on his ear.
Barry, I'll actually get to you. There were some questions in the chat here, but I will get to you, okay, Barry? 1 second, man. So thank you, makes all the sense. I suppose the parallel reality, sorry, this is from Lori. I just want to read Lori's thing here. Thank you, makes sense. I suppose the parallel realities we could potentially experience are endless. Will be interesting to see what our collective consciousness will manifest. Yes. Cheers to staying optimistic and positive. Thank you. Yes. Yes. The collective, that's what I think they're looking at. I really do. That's it is a slow moving and intuitive process. When she said that to me on the 7th contact event, that's what I think she's referring to, is the collective whole picture of us being able to handle them. Just a heads up that tonight between, this is from Richie, just a heads up that tonight between 9 p.m. and midnight, there's a global CE5 event where CE5 group members will be conducting meditations to form a continuous light around the world, reaching out for universal peace. You don't need to be a part of the group to do this, and can set that intention on your own at some point within that time frame. Great. I have to run, but thanks for the presentation, Jeff, and have a great day, everybody. That's great. Thanks, Richie. Awesome. Okay, Bear, how you doing, man? I like your archaic.
I made it myself. Hey,
I saw you making it, thinking that's what that was, and then because I didn't see the hand, I totally forgot. So sorry.
That's cool. I just like to say I feel very fortunate in listening to you. And the fact that I think I understand you quite well. And a big reason for that is that we come from the same sort of background country and we speak the same language, same sort of experiences. Yours, much more for what we're here for. I don't have those experiences, but I'd like to thank you. I'd like to think that I'm quite fortunate in being in the place I am listening to you. And I have a question. Jeff,
Sure.
is it humbling to see yourself as a teacher when you know you still have so much more to learn?
Yes.
That's what I
Yes.
think. I figure I'm watching you go along your journey and
Yeah.
you're getting more and more involved in it, right? And I just can't wait for the next presentation or the next thing you got going on. It's really such a learning process, not just for you, but for anybody who chooses to listen. And I'm just one more of those people. I
Yeah.
think that's great, whatever you're going through.
Thanks, man.
That's
I
my
appreciate
question.
it. That's
Okay.
appreciate it. Yeah, of course. Of course, I'm humbled by it. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing is that you can't have an ego about it, right? At any point, the beings themselves are so scales beyond humans, yet are gentle about the process. So they're not trying to, they don't force anything upon us. And then it just leaves for all this kind of exploration to go on. And I have presentations on my Yahoo like figured out here. I literally probably have I can't tell you. I probably have the next like 6 or 7 already. Like, hey, that one, that, and that's all I kind of thought out in my head. Without, I don't have any way to plan that just yet. But that's what the YouTube channel is for too. Is so never mind the presentations. I got the YouTube channel to explore and do small versions of things. So I have those things going on in the YouTube channel, and they're meant to pair up together presentations with the YouTube channel. So yeah, I appreciate that, Barry. Thanks, man. Jeff, did they share anything about New Earth with you? Anastasia. So a New Earth. Now, Anastasia, do you know anything? Do you know anything about my book? Because my book actually does have. I can describe if you are referring to something besides my book. Don't know if you're referring to.
Oh, hi.
Hi,
Sorry, I
Anastasia.
just decided I'm muted. Yeah, it will be easier. No, I'm not aware about your book, so
Okay.
I don't know if you actually put it in there. So if it's there, then I'll look it up. But I'm not aware. That's why I'm asking.
No problem. Yeah, let me explain now and then. So, this New Earth thing. What's going on here? So, when I started presenting the contact events, I had no idea that the beings or any contactees or anything had this idea of this kind of change, this massive change with which the planet becomes different. And what is that difference? And I did learn from experiencer after experiencer that a lot of people get these visions. So yeah, there's some kind of change going on. They explain it to me like this. So they talk about electromagnetic fields in the planet. They talk about changing the field and they talk about putting themselves here in that process. So this New Earth would actually have aliens and specifically, I'm assuming gray aliens, but maybe also other aliens. I don't really know. That their technology would be here, that their technology, they won't allow this system. Like, it's kind of sounds aggressive, but it's aggressive if we think it's benefiting us. And we like it a lot. I think the idea is they're not robbing us or taking things away, but they're very aware that that the system we're in is destroying the planet, and we've kind of just, we're just sheep about it all. We're okay with everything. We're okay with this kind of like slaughter of each other and this idea that we can get away with this. And they're kind of saying, listen, you can't. And I don't think beings have ever given me any impression that they are angry at humans as much as they maybe are a little bit, annoyed by leadership that doesn't address these issues. But the New Earth that I saw was a change in frequency, literally an electromagnetic frequency change. And that change will not just allow humans who have alien genetics in them to activate and use those genetics, but will allow all humans, and the beings will have technology to change consciousness levels. So the thing that they showed me was you don't have to be enlightened, but you have to want to be enlightened. You just have to want to evolve. It's not about a matter that you have to be at a certain level or anything. And there's no discrimination, no race or alien genetics or not alien genetics. The beings are lovers of life and they're lovers of nature. And so they aren't caring about these kind of tribal issues that we have. They're just wanting us to kind of all get up, get up on the level, get up, raise that consciousness, which is kind of what the presentation is supposed to do today, right? Like get that level. And then they're creating a supporting environment, if you will, literally a change of electromagnetic field on the planet. In that process, in the contact event, they show me what I'm certain is the Schumann resonance, which is the low bandwidth between the ground and the ionosphere, which is up to 70 kilometers, where there's a field, an electromagnetic field. Sounds like that's what they're saying that they're going to change. And listen, the beings are paranormal by nature, and paranormal activity is electromagnetic by nature. So all this seems to be just a massive picture that is overwhelming and overwhelming for humans and hard to comprehend. And but for that reason, I think they give it in pieces, and with this overarching idea that there's this new planet. And yeah, as far as I'm aware, so the White Room, like this idea of turning into orbs to experience your full and completed self, right? If you're ready for it, it's that kind of thing. Okay, good. You can be in your raised state of consciousness. And then you learn how to live a new life, where this kind of ideas of consciousness and the stuff that they do, which is they explain to me, is about information. And they are still, here's the other twist too. I think that we are of the assumption that when you die and all this stuff, we go into a place of all knowing. I think there is all knowing, but there's still mystery. And I think that's the picture that was confusing for humans. You don't get into a state of all knowing, so then that's it. We just don't have to live anymore. The universe is still shifting. You're still an individual identity. You can have access to things, but you're still growing. There's still a growth. There's still a mystery going on about growth, about consciousness in general. And I still think the beings though they live in these higher realms, they're still living in some kind of mystery, and they love it, and they still create their livelihood around that life. That's the best that I could do to frame that new Earth. So hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Great. Brian, yeah.
I've got a question about the White Room. I think we can assume there's government secrecy about UFOs and ETs, so that's kind of a given. And that within the secret government, they obviously know a lot more about UFOs, grays, and ETs than the general public does. And I think we can also assume there's people within the government that care. They care about the future of the world. So is it reasonable to think that's possibly in Area 51, they actually have a White Room built and parked right there, and they could bring people in to decide, okay, we're going to transcend you. We're going to put you in the White Room.
No, I don't believe it at all. I don't believe
Well,
it.
I said possible. Is it possible to get White Rooms on Earth?
Yeah, no, this stuff is, our human world can't contain it. You can't walk out and be a human. You don't have a job anymore, man. You don't live life anymore. You don't live. It is look, I got traumatized. I got traumatized the moment it occurred. Remember, I walked out and I was like, who am I? Am I the 16-year-old self? That's what would happen. You can't function. You can't function in the planet anymore. And I mean to our society, you can't function. You can't go back to saying, oh, okay, I'll go back to my job. I'll go back to buying things and living in this. Everything will be fake. You can't. You literally cannot. A human being cannot function on after having that White Room, which is exactly why they did it the way they did it, which is buried it in my memory, brought it up at the 1997, then allowed me to be free of everything, and then live this kind of synchronistic life where I don't have to care about my livelihood. I'll be able to rely on it, and there'll be these synchronicities that can occur. That's what the White Room would do to you. The White Room would make you abandon society there's no military man that has this. There's no Pentagon official. This stuff they would lose everything. You cannot do it. Everyone's living some degree of fakeness, right? Everyone's living some degree of doing things they don't want to be doing in their lives, right? Every single human being is faking their way through existence. That's the problem with it all, right? The beings are not doing that. The beings are living in this completed state, and you can't live in a fake life with a completed consciousness. And so it would be absolutely traumatizing, and it'd be absolutely traumatizing to humans in general to do that. That's why the process of brain and getting in conditioning and these ideas are required. And yeah, that's my.
I guess my follow-up question is, you described in the 1950s, they met with Eisenhower and they decided they didn't know what to do. So we can assume that since the 1950s, our secret government has had a relationship with the Greys. So they obviously know a lot more about this. So I'm just describing broadly, there's people outside the secret government like yourself, they work with you, and other experiences like Susie Hansen, perhaps thousands or millions of others. Isn't it reasonable, that's possible, that within the secret government, they also have a relationship with the Greys on the craft? And why couldn't they do that on Earth in Area 51 and have a white room in Area 51?
Yeah, so you're coming from the perspective that the aliens were saying, here's us and everything we are and stand for. And I don't believe they did that. I believe the beings are, which is the behavior they display to all contactees, the behavior they display when we learn about some of this kind of whistleblower stuff. We aren't learning about the aliens saying this is all of reality. In fact, what it looks like is the beings themselves tell misinformation to these government people. And then we later learn that that was not right, right? I think there's this idea that, was it Ronald Reagan, when Ronald Reagan was in power, and there's a paper trail of information that goes to Ronald Reagan, and Grant Cameron was really good at kind of unraveling this stuff. And in there was a race, was aliens, I'm assuming gray, maybe I don't even know, saying it took 9 months by travel to get here. We now know that is bullcrap. The beings do not take 9 months to get here. On paper documentation, they're saying it takes 9 months. They're not treating the government any better than they treat any other human. Because this is, remember, I told you it's in a phone conversation. Nobody understands what this is. The beings aren't saying to them, you know it all, and we're not telling them. That's not what the beings are doing. They're not telling anybody. They're not telling the people in government what they are, because their brains can't handle it. That's why, because their brains cannot. This isn't what you're always assuming is that this is something you can read on a paper or in a book and then go live your normal life. But you know, and I know, that when people really learn about this stuff, they break down. Remember, Tom DeLonge cried for 3 days? Didn't one of the guys who was at the Eisenhower thing apparently jump out of a building? Right? This is what this does. This blows your brain. You know why? Because it changes your identity. That's the problem. And those Pentagon guys and those government guys, they can't handle it any more than you could. And the beings know that. That's the difference. They're not telling everybody everything. They're giving the important pieces of information like they do with contactees. They give you the pieces so you can digest them. And when you look at mine over a lifetime, we have 26 contact events. They were very slow and they're very gentle. They're conscious of the brains, right? They're conscious. You have to go live a normal life. You can't be traumatized that you aren't who you are and you have to go back and be a general or something like that's impossible. It literally is impossible. And the beings are aware of this kind of these subtle things about the psychology of humans. That's the obvious too. So I'm not convinced at all. I really am not at all convinced. I'm convinced the beings actually didn't provide information and gave just the right amounts of pieces of information to make them make choices. You need to do this or do that, or else these are the outcomes. And that's really what it looks like. The beings were treating humans that way from the 50s, and they're treating all of us the same way. They're not treating the government with all this information and giving us partial information. I'm fully convinced no one understands fully what it is. And it's because the beings themselves are the ones bringing themselves down to make us relatable. But otherwise, no, I'm not convinced I'm certain they didn't sit there and they may have given humans some pieces of stuff, right? Like apparently the guy who apparently there's a guy with the body of the Roswell victim, the Roswell being, and the being spent years in his house. I don't know how.
I think 1949 to 1952. Yeah. I think died on June 8th, 1952. Right. One psychic in the army could communicate with him like all day long. His job was to translate.
Yeah, and he talked about the afterlife. He
talked about the history of humanity, everything. Yeah. History of the universe.
Yeah. So this is you can give it, so it's a book, so it's relatable, and so you can take it, and then you can say, "Oh, close your thing and go and think about it," and then you can mull over that, and you can think about how that changes your life or applies it. But you can't put it in and make it someone's life. That's the difference, and your brain won't. That's the whole brain thing here. I talk about the brain and consciousness. you will have a resistance. You will have people who get it, they can't take it, and then they'll resist it, and then you'll have cycle breakdowns is what you'll have.
Well,
Yeah,
I agree with that. I guess
yeah.
my thinking changed in Susie Hansen's last video, which is on her Susie Hansen YouTube channel, not her recent ones from Seattle. In October, she changed my thinking. Susie Hansen stated that she believes that the Greys gave them the signal to the American government, the Pentagon, to admit that the Tic Tac UFO filmed in 2004 was in fact genuine. It's a genuine unknown. And she feels the Greys gave the green light. So this implies a harmonious, cooperative relationship. Like I used to think, well, the government's the bad guys, right? They're not giving us disclosure. Now I've done a 180-degree turn because of Susie Hansen, largely because of you. Now I'm in harmony with the American government, thinking humanity can't handle the truth. Disclosure must be slow, just as the Greys told Susie on the craft. So if there's that level of cooperation, why could not Area 51 have a white room?
But you're not get that person who takes it won't have their job anymore. You won't be a scientist anymore. You will not, you will, that's when they say that this whole thing is about consciousness, it's not about you learning and then writing about it in the book. This is alters you. And until you experience that, it's all hypothetical for you. Until you experience how it changes you, then you're living a fake life. And you can't just give that to people. You can't just make them do that, because they won't live their normal Pentagon lifestyle anymore, or whatever they're doing.
But don't you assume there's thousands of people employed in the United States with the UFO field, like maybe more than thousands? Don't you think they would elect a few of them to have this psychic experience? Isn't that logical?
Well, psychic experience, yes. But white room isn't a psychic experience. Yes, psychic experiences, yes. But white room is not a psychic experience.
But why couldn't they be in the white room? Like if there's a white room on the craft, why not in Area 51 or Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio?
Yeah, I've already explained this. I don't believe it. That's all. I know we don't know, and of course, right? We don't know. I just don't believe it because it's too intense. It is so intense. It is too intense.
My thing is, you survived it, right? You're outside in the government. I mean, you're outside in the public dealing with the circumstances. I mean, they have all the money in the world to protect their people, go through any psychological experience. It would be even easier within the military than it was for you, wouldn't it?
Okay,
Yeah,
first I've integrated it, but that's after not belonging to society, right? Like I'm not.
Jeff was brought along slowly.
Yeah,
I mean, that's his point. You don't just attain it, you live it. It's not possible because it's so much to accept. You have to have the reality presented to you in slow doses, and they don't have the time to do that to everybody, and certainly not people who are in a power of authority who are going to oppose it as much as they can. They have to live it in order to accept it, and it'd be really tough for them to do that, I think.
Yeah, and so like, okay, let's put it this way. You've been living for thousands of years. Are you ready to accept that? Are you ready to accept that you don't die? Are you ready to accept that? Are you ready to accept that what you're doing now in this lifetime affects the next lifetime? Are you ready to accept that? Are you ready to accept that you have access to all information? So stop complaining. Stop being a victim. You have power. You can manipulate the universe. Are you ready to accept that? Right? This is like the scale of what this is not ready. Humans are not ready, though we're getting prepped. I question, right? I think of the aliens as thinking of us like the way humans would treat animals, right? When an animal doesn't understand something, we don't sit there and learn, polar bear to tell the polar bear we need to tranquilize it, right? We have to do it, and then over time, people teach monkeys or gorillas to communicate through sign language, and then eventually there's some kind of communication going on. That's the level that I think is this kind of similar consciousness of, we don't tell them everything because they have no consciousness to understand any of this stuff. And I think over time, I think the people are communicating with them. I do believe that there's some level of communication. I don't believe that they're sitting down and they're waiting for the next gray alien to come down, and the guy comes in, they say, okay, what about this policy, that policy, this policy, that policy? I think the beings are saying, this is the outcome. We're coming. So how about we help you make that process gentler? That's what I think they say. I don't think they say that policy, this policy, that policy, this policy. I think they kind of keep distance and they let the humans do their thing. And that's the communication I think is actually going on, because that's how they display themselves here with humans in the contacted field. They don't try to get into my life. They don't say, go date that girl, go do this thing, go eat that, make sure you start doing this. They don't involve themselves with me. They let me live out my life, but then they're the influence on the outside. Right. I'm certain and that's kind of like, it's higher consciousness to lower to, okay, so other consciousness to other consciousness. I think that's the reality of it. You're going to get this kind of this not telling you what to do, but being on the outside. And if there is an ultimate outcome, which is I'm certain it is, they're coming, then they're probably saying these things would make it helpful. But that, again, I don't believe that they're telling people what to do and that kind of stuff. And I do think their world is still scales up, and that someone had the white room experience, they couldn't live in society properly. Anastasia, and we'll go to you, Bear.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on that, based on my own experiences, that first of all, we all different, obviously, beings, and with other life's experiences, whether in different realities, and we'll hold specific information, we'll perceive reality differently. But as a whole, humanity is definitely not ready at this even now moment. It's 100% true. And that push for aggressive disclosure from humans, again, shows that we are not ready. Because again, if you will really have experience of wholeness and unity and be with source as a higher consciousness, you would know that everything is known, like for this lifetime and even the future. So the whole great plan of the new earth and whatever, that's already kind of happened, right? It's just playing out and on the higher levels. And so different beings on different dimensions have different, again, perceptions, but even they understand that it has to be like a little bit help, like assistance, I guess. But again, there's also free will, and evolution is organic as well. So it's like a whole combination of that. It's kind of like you don't help the squirrel, like a squirrels on your backyard you don't give them food, they do their food. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like we can give them all the food, but do we do that with animals? No, we let them organically leave, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same idea of the nature. Like, that's why, what's the point? They can just erase us altogether. Like, that's already been done. Yeah. We're not first time here. Like, we remember, like, I remember I've been in Atlantis and before that and on other planets. And we have that awareness that everything can be erased easily and then repopulated with the same gray aliens. Let's just say they just wiped out and then they be here, but they're not doing it this time. And we know that's not happening this time. We know we're going to be coexisting and we're all evolving as a civilization, you can say. So that is like, that's why I'm kind of agreeing, Jeff, what are you saying in a sense, like, of like white rooms and control and let's just make everybody ascend. First of all, it's a choice. People who don't want to ascend, they won't. Same like the beings were telling you, it's a choice. So why would we push? Like, there's no reason to push. Yes, we need to bring awareness. That's what you're doing. Talking a little bit more people, awakening to this reality. Obviously, they perceive information differently, even from what you said today. I'm sure everybody perceive it, like, depends on their level of, did they even have the contact? Do they even believe? Depends where they are. You know what I mean? Do they remember? Do they know what they are? Do they know why they're here? Do they know what we're building? And stuff like that. And the actual like connectedness of all. And it's beyond us and aliens. It's like truly connectedness of the one. Like, if they haven't had that experience, and again, that is transcendental experiences, usually come either with white room or near-death experience or whatever, right? And that's how your whole identity shapes. But again, how many people even went through that? And if you didn't go through that transformation, you wouldn't be able to integrate any of these experiences, because this is not even explainable by human language.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and that is
integration.
the truth. Yeah.
Natural integration. And I'm actually convinced they use their quantum tech to help with that process, the natural interactions with humans, because it's great. Well said, Anastasia. That's awesome. Yeah, well said. Great. Bar.
Hey, just a quick one.
Yeah.
We had a little thing meet up with Marina and our a group yesterday. And although she's not here now, Beverly, who's here earlier, had mentioned that she had seen over the North Shore Mountains and then coming towards a fleet of craft. And there
Awesome.
was up over her building. I don't know if you heard her say this, but
No.
at one time, but she ran downstairs. There's 21 floors. I guess she didn't take the elevator. She got out into and with her camera, tried to take pictures. And she saw two people and they were right up above her. And she asked one person whether he saw it, was a couple, guy and a girl, the aliens above him. And he said, no, I don't see anything. And she asked the girl whether she saw it. And she said, yes, look at what are those, and she was right into it. And my question was that one see and one couldn't.
Yeah.
Hell, is our awareness somewhat dependent on our own personal DNA? And should we realize our differences, as some have innate abilities from their own personal heritage and others don't? I don't want to say that, but just luck of the draw, but it kind of sounds like that. Sounds like, unless you have had some DNA influence, maybe, 12 generations before, and you had been included in all this, you're not going to be, and that was a little depressing for me, because what if I'm not included? What if my DNA hasn't predisposed me to experiencing all these things? Just a thought. I just thought I'd bring it up to you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of pissed off about it, to tell you the truth.
Don't be pissed off. Let me make you feel better. So everything's choice, man. Everything will come down to choice. So you and free will. And those people maybe didn't make that choice in this life, but they maybe made it in another life. So nobody is just randomly placed with things, and at the end of it, there was a choice made, whether it was to put themselves into a body that had some kind of, you're right, okay, the DNA is definitely a part of it, but you can also code your own DNA. So you opening up to those psychic abilities and all that kind of stuff can shift things in your own DNA. So you're not limited, but there's a base stock, obviously, that there's a whole other dialogue here that is so far beyond humans right now, but it does seem to be there is a DNA, two components, DNA and then consciousness, and then the merging of those two things. So yeah, someone could just have the consciousness ability to see crafts and to see that stuff. Someone could have not the consciousness ability and have the DNA. Someone could have the DNA and not want to see it though, right? There's all this variations of stuff. Someone could have the consciousness and also not want to see it. So then the choice is there as well too. Someone could have the choice and then gain the experience of consciousness to do it. So the choice is the kind of deciding factor of everything. And I do know that people can code their DNA. So I would just want to make that more inclusive for you. Yeah, it is obvious that there is certain people can tune in and certain people can't. And the other part to that too is to not confuse the ability for the person to seeing it and the other person who's not a favoritism or like some kind of specialness on behalf of them. Well, they're more advanced than that person. Not that, but the beings themselves, trust me, consciousness is driving the craft. So this higher awareness, some kind of quantum God thing, is driving the craft. And it says that person needs to see this craft, while that person, by not showing up for that person, it shows that person how important this is. And then you don't know what the effect it is for the person who doesn't see it. So there's always a brain-breaking thing going on here, right? There's always a expansion of consciousness that they're always aware of. And so I kind of lean it back to a whole bunch of different pieces, and that the beings, that the consciousness, the craft itself is aware of who it's manifesting for. So let me tell you a story, a really fun story, actually. Funny, I guess. So when my memories were coming out, I was having stuff fly by, and I was able to video some things, and I can take pictures. I still have pictures. I saw them again like a couple of weeks ago. And but when they don't want to be filmed and they're there long enough, then it doesn't come out properly in the video. It looks like a smudge and it's too far away or something. But I know it's them. And then other times they really are okay with me filming, and those videos are on my website. So when the videos, when all that was happening and the memories were coming out, I started, it's in the book that I mentioned that I can feel the craft, right? When they're in the sky, I could feel them, I could connect with them. Well, I was putting together at that time that, okay, I'm certain I'm now feeling something watching me from the sky. This has got to be goddamn aliens watching me. I could feel that elder thing, that elder being, I think, is watching me. So here I am out with my wife down the spit over at Iona Beach. And we're walking down the spit. You know what, for those who don't know, here in Vancouver, we have a spit, and it goes out, it's underneath the, it's in the Georgia Strait, but the airlines, the planes will fly over the spit. So me and my wife are coming back, going onto the mainland, walking down the spit, and a plane flies over us. And here I am thinking about this stuff, about the aliens. Oh, this, I could feel something was in the sky, even right there. And I could feel this presence. And then this plane goes over us. Well, then I hear the plane and it leaves. Then this distortion occurs in the sky, and it goes, so the plane goes, I'll make these noises, sorry for the noise making, makes a big noise. And then all of a sudden it leaves. And then I hear, it sounds like a tornado whipped up, and all of a sudden I can hear the plane again. There was no plane in the sky, and it sounded like someone had bent and distorted space. So so I could hear the sound that had just occurred was occurring again, and yet it was distorted by this wind. And it was some kind of gravity effect or something. I couldn't even figure it out. It was like, and it was louder than it had ever been before. I got my wife, I said, Doc, what's going on? Doc, and I get her and I grab her and hold her down. And she's like, what is going on? And I'm like, did you hear that? That's insane. What's that noise? I'm looking up, and she's like, what noise? I'm like, you didn't just hear that? And at first I thought it was her, right? It was like, oh my God, she's so unperceptive. Like, how could she not hear that? You didn't hear the plane and then hear the plane later, and there was no plane in the sky? She's like, no. And I'm like, you didn't hear the plane that was louder and making this wind noise, whipping around? No, I didn't hear that. And then I learned at a CE5 that people can be side by side. One person can see something and the other person cannot. And then I realized that I don't know what the hell that is, man. I don't know if it's frequency bending, if it's stuff that was in my, there's implants and stuff. I have no idea, man.
You got it.
Well, I got it sometimes, yeah, for certain things. And I don't doubt that they can control that too. That's the other part of it. I'm certain that they can do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah. There is a question here, so I got all roused up from that event. That was really fun. It was funny for me, that's why. This summer, I'm finally traveling to Cali, flight booked. Oh, David. Hey, David. It's good to hear you. Good to see you, man. Flight booked, then arriving at Area 51. You're going to Area 51. Don't storm it. Then Petrified National Park. That's great. Sedona, finally spending the last 4 days in Roswell. 70. Wow, man, you're doing a full-on alien expedition here. Also going to stay in Albuquerque Air Force Base is where they took parts of the crash to be engineered. That's great, man. I've been researching Roswell. Oh, that's good to see you. Okay, he had just a good, interesting chat there. That's fantastic. Thanks, Sean. Thank you so much. Okay, Brian, go ahead, man.
I'm inspired by your book. Just did another plug. And just I want to question about the cover of the book says, and the alien plan to build an enlightened city on planet Earth. That's given me quite a bit of hope for the future, because I'm always concerned about the Ukraine-Russia war, what's going to happen next. So I think even if there's a cataclysm, I believe that's going to happen in Minnesota, the way you've described in your previous talks. So you described it as an enlightened city. If people don't want to go there, that's fine. It's all free choice. And if they want to get enlightened, to go there. So I'm wondering what happens there. And I suppose, do you think in a situation like that, would they actually have the grace have created a city in the future? Think there they would have like a white room in the city, and they would choose people who are eligible for this, they're ready for this, have a society which can allow this kind of spiritual transformation better than our society.
Yes. So, okay, the only thing I'm going off of here is not, prophesizing, but they gave me these downloads and I can physically go there like it's the present. I don't get it. It's these downloads, I'm assuming. And so yeah, it is. And then I can, telepathically communicate with the elder and she will explain things to me. So as far as I'm aware, yes, it is. You can't be in that city without having the, if you're in the city, then you have the freedom to go to this place like the White Room. Yes, you have access to that and the fun and the freedom. And yes, so all of that is, and it's all part of their technology, right? Their consciousness technology. And you can't operate their technology. It's actually almost like logical and straightforward. You can't operate their technology without understanding this kind of level about your own individual consciousness. And that's the idea, is to give the book some kind of hope. Because I actually, I think a lot of us can look at the planet, and if we don't believe in aliens, the anxiety that would be in any, never just us, man.
I agree.
But kids, like I feel for children, I feel for teenagers, I feel for kids who are growing up in this and they feel hopeless.
I think without aliens, it's actually utterly hopeless because humanity is just not going to solve.
I know, and it's a tough conversation. I don't want to also make people feel like humans are therefore, stupid or can't figure it out for themselves. I think that humans are really smart, and I just think that it's kind of like it's too much. It's the culmination of a bunch of things, including overpopulation and stuff. And I think the whole thing is just it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. And yeah, so I do like to think of it as hope that for all the damage, for all the darkness and damage, or perceived darkness, I'm going to say, and even maybe perceived damage that's being caused, that knowing the abilities of these beings and knowing where their real spaces and their real heads are, that it is kind of a hope. And also what's obvious to me is the beings gave me these really, nitty gritty, dirty experiences of theirs too, right? All the biological stuff, I had to face it all, right? And that shows that it can be combined. It might be hard to accept. It might be hard to understand, but I tried to do my best because that's why they obviously did this. They wanted me to write the book and they gave me this biological period, because this has happened to a plethora. This is how they're known, right? This is why the aliens are called dark ones and all that stuff, and abductors and taking you in the middle of the night, and because it's all biological, and they're going to do this with you, and it's going to be medical, and they just sound so crazy making, and yet they're showing obviously a picture that this does happen, this is the reason, and this is the outcome, and this is why it's all kind of happening this way. Whether the people, whatever people take from it, man, it's symbolic or something, I still don't know until we know, but I'm convinced that it is to be a positive, hopeful book about hope, about the future.
Well, that's two revelations today. Like, we can project our form into a craft, and that this alien city, and that you're in communication, like the future and the present and the past are kind of illusions, that in the future you can actually see it now. That's a revelation, and that this is going on in the future because you can see it now, and you're in communication with the elder. So that's two revelations today, Jeff. I'm overwhelmed. This is great. It's profound, really. It's a profound talk.
And here's the kicker: there's no space, no time. So I have past life awareness of like the Neanderthal lives, and the earth was pristine. It still is, man. It still is. That is not in the past. It is in, that's the craziest part of this all, is that we are destroying the planet. We're doing harm, but it doesn't not exist. It continues to exist. It's so screwed up. And when you wrap your head around that, you kind of wrap your head around the quantum, no space, no time part. Right, that pristine planet is still there. It still exists. It's part of the pain when people see damage to the planet. They think, and we can't. There's some degree we're eroding, like, genetic lines that have been around for tens of millions of years, and so yet we don't have to feel despair. Yet we can know that our actions will be helped and governed or directed in a new way for this new future. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Good to see you, David. Glad you're here, man. It's been a while. Good to see you, Rolf, too. Yeah, Rolf is here. Thank you for a phenomenal presentation. It gets us all thinking and pondering at a deeper level. Gotta go. Thanks, Dominic. Take care.
Don't be afraid to ask Jeff questions, you guys. You can just come on here and speak to him, He's pretty open.
Denise, thank you so much, Jeff. I got your, oh, sweet. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Denise. Thank you. We chatted earlier. Can't wait to read it. You really have answered a lot of them for me today. That's great. Thanks, Denise. Awesome. And some people don't want to be on video there. I'm assuming anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no biggie. I just like hanging out with you.
Nice, man.
You're a decent sort, and I learned so much from you. What your experiences are, I'm humbled. You know, I'm thinking, holy smoke, Jeff, the stuff that you go through
Yeah.
is there's got to be a reason, and you're ironing it all out. And just before my eyes, I'm seeing, wow, he's figuring that out, and he's getting better at this. You know, remember when you first wanted to get the book out and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And your
Yeah.
website and everything. That's
Yeah.
so cool. The impetus for you to do that. I don't think you're out there to make money. I think you're just trying to show
Yeah.
what has happened to you just because you're a decent sort. I mean, if you keep this inside, that's no way.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you're
Yeah.
dealing with has to be shown to people. It should be shown to people, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
And if we're willing to listen, then wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's, you know, win-win, both people, both sides.
Yeah. No, there's
shut
no,
up.
there's no, don't shut up, man. Don't shut up.
Now, Dave?
There's no, make it clear, there's no money to be made here.
No.
There's no money to be made here.
Yeah, that's
There's-
Brian.
it's
Yeah, I've published 2 books. There's no money to be Grant Canyon. I talked to Desta Barnaby.
Yeah, Desta.
He
Yeah.
published for Grand Canyon. There's no money to be
Yeah, there's
made.
no money,
And
yeah,
he's
yeah.
famous, right? He's the most famous Canadian ufologist. Maybe makes $400 on a book or something.
Yeah, you got it. There's no money to be made.
All the
And it's-
work that goes into this stuff.
And even all these talks, like, it's just, this is the hobby, right? This is the passion. That's what it is. Yeah, you got it, man. And it's therapy, right? It is 100% therapy. In all regards, it's therapy. So
That's what you were saying at the very first.
yeah.
Yeah, just getting your story out. You got to talk to
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah,
Remember
it's
how-
for how extreme,
remember-
right? Like this white room stuff. Like they don't have Vancouver UFOs to talk to, then they are screwed. You go
Oh, yeah.
mentally insane with
Oh,
a white
yeah.
room experience, and you can't talk about it with anybody. Right, yeah. Thank you, Lara. Thank you, Jeff. Do you think the Greys or any other alien beings are shapeshifting into human bodies and walking the earth today? Yes. So my gray alien, there's a story in my book where that is exactly what the gray, what the elder did. She was playing with my ego, and I was a punk rock musician in Toronto, thinking I was a hot shot, and I just the end of the era of having contact events, and the elder was, "Ooh, what's going on with you?" And she was, anyway, it was a weird experience, and I'll have to do a presentation on that soon. And
Wait,
that's
was she a young chick? What did she look like?
she was the age, like, I don't know, maybe like late 20s or early
Because
30s.
I remember you had the old Israeli woman on Granville Island. She took that form.
Yeah.
And she was kind of hitting on you when you were a young man.
It was playing with my ego. Yeah. It's the and I make the connection with Whitley Strieber's, like the cooperation there. That I think it's transformation. I put it in the name of my book without fully remembering, but I think it was transformation. And he's in a circle, and he's at some kind of conference, or I don't know what it is. And the aliens are talking to him, and he has to explain everything, right? He has to say, "Oh, I have this degree," and he has to explain how intelligent he is and how smart he is. And then the beings are kind of like, "Wow, oh wow, isn't that interesting?" And they're like, he's all deflated at the end of it all. And that's exactly what the elder did here. She was like, "Oh, who's this guy? Oh, wow, what are you doing afterwards?" And I was like, her look was so strange. All the clothes were mismatched, and it was all bizarre. She was standing strange. She was like this and standing weird. And I couldn't figure her out. And I was like, what? I just thought that was a weird person. And I wouldn't have thought anything about it had my guru not brought it up. And he was the one who said he brought it up. He's like, he's laughing about it. And it's in my book. And I didn't mention it to him. He's like, "You were being played with. A spirit came and was playing jokes on you. Ha ha." He's like, "Think back." Ha. He's laughing to himself. And it turned out it was the elder, because I found that out in the contact event. So anyway, yeah, sorry, Laura. They are definitely and there are other contact events. Other people talk like this where it'll be a human that comes up to them, and the human looks off place, maybe deadpan eyes. I don't think maybe people know that it's a human or that's an alien, but through and through, I think the aliens can do that. And if they're not doing it, it's a choice. And if they're doing it, it's a choice, right? They're just making their choices to do it. And but only you can know. And when I met someone who, I met someone who was in an ethereal form, and they looked real, they looked physical, and they were in ethereal form. And when I was in their presence, I could feel they didn't feel like they were there. So that's another thing I can give you to, if you were trying to figure out if your alien is not really there or not, is that they sometimes feel like you're tuned into a frequency and you can see them. And so, yeah, fascinating stuff. Totally crazy, but fascinating as hell. Yeah. Laura, you did have your hand up. I'm assuming, did the question get answered?
Yes, it did get answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, and the meetup description today, something you didn't get to, you wrote how the scale of difference in consciousness is a potential impediment to transparent disclosure. And I can imagine if the President of the United States gave full transparent disclosure and said, well, these are higher interdimensional beings, they're walking on earth among us, they communicate us with telepathy, and maybe you can develop these skills, but they're above us, they can manipulate you, put ideas in your head. Like, that would be disturbing to the public. Like, you want to comment on that? Like, if they had transparent disclosure about the dimensionality, and telepathy of the beings.
So that point was meant to be mentioned or covered. It is, I thought it was covered, but maybe it wasn't clear when I talked about the indigenous cultures, and then it's okay. And then came down to the if we aren't living or identifying with unity, collectiveness, or ideas to expand our own mind, like mythology, then when an alien is in your face, you're projecting your stuff onto it, and that's. Listen, when people even talk about contact events, I can't even tell half the time. If someone's had, gray aliens are evil, I know because I've had this experience. I still don't know because I don't know that they're projecting, right? I don't know that they're not projecting their stuff, and because they will enforce that because their dimensionality will shock the human. So then the human will kind of already have a terror effect from them. This thing is crazy, and that's what I had when I was 16. On that soccer field, is I'm terrified because this thing its feel is awful. Its feel is horrible because it's pushing its paranormal presence on you, and you haven't thought any of that stuff out in your own mind, so you're terrified of it. So that's what I meant when I talked about the impediment. There's no way that, and that's why I also talk about the white room and governments interacting with aliens. I'm not convinced. I'm convinced that they're definitely communicating to people who know, but it's not like they're getting on the ships and now they're driving. Now they're having all the same experiences that experiencers are having. I'm not convinced that that's occurring, and it could be for certain. You're right. I'm certain they could maybe say, we'll bring in that scientist and that scientist to live with aliens for 5 weeks or something like that. But again, if they're doing that, the beings themselves are the ones. It's consciousness. It's always consciousness, man. It's not about some scientist learning something and coming back and then creating a formula for something. What would happen is the scientists themselves would be exposed to their own core consciousness. So then they have to look at all their fallacies, their problems, the times they've lied to themselves, the choices they've made in their lives. They can't handle it. And if you don't know how to address things spiritually, which our planet doesn't, we have all these broken religions about everything, then you're going to get screwed up. And that's why I can't be convinced yet that governments are actually, shaking hands and saying this and, hey, aliens, let's do this together. I think it's a one-sided relationship where the aliens are withholding a lot. And they are aware of what needs to happen, and then they're saying, "Government, you've got to do these things." But they come and then they leave. I'm not saying.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. They're in charge. And that disclosure is totally up to them for the last 100 years.
Yeah, and it's not malevolent. It is because it's this. It's so high. It's so. Even as you were saying, right? I'm certain that I think we've heard that before from some disclosure papers or something, that they were terrified at the idea of aliens being able to just go anywhere, come anywhere you want. But that's the point. So can we. Right? The only time that will ever make sense and be okay for all humans is when we realize we can do that also. And so it is a whole crazy game of trying to get us up. Yeah.
Guess it's got to go slowly. I want to comment about the idea of, bad gray, good gray. When Susie Hansen gave her talk to the Satellite UFO Network with Troy Bacon in April, she said the grays themselves told her that there's an interloper species of gray.
Oh, yeah.
Which meaning causing problems. And that was really meaningful coming from her, for her to say that. Because, of course, most people diss the grays. Most people are down on all the grays.
right?
for her to say, okay, there are actually some bad grays. It's good for her to say that, or for you to say that. You know, but you've never had a bad experience with a grace. You never met these bad grays, right?
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, and I don't, and I'm not going to comment on it. But again, I lean towards humans. Listen, someone says they had a bad experience. I first have to see, have you ever approached your fears? Right? Like you got it. Like this is so deep, man. This is not, that's why it's about consciousness. Have you ever, because it's so easy. Here's the thing too, the beings themselves, it's not like, so, people, I don't know where I need to put this information, this what I'm about to say, another presentation, I don't know what it is, but people don't understand high level consciousness either. They don't. They assume that it's all angels. Oh, well, that must mean when they talk, they have hymns of beautiful music behind them, and when they will only say lovey things, and oh, lovey. Dude, Jesus flipped the tables at the synagogue. Krishna swore at Arjuna and called him neuter gendered. He was offending him. Gurus people don't understand what a guru is. They think, gurus are going to tell you you're such a good person. I don't know, right? But like they can scold and they can berate and the real core is that they're trying to make you better. You need to be better. Wake up. That's kind of what they're doing. That's their behavior. Through and through, that's their behavior. And so when they're dealing with a human, I can't tell sometimes if the human themselves, if a human is violent, perverted, I'm not trying to be morality, but this stuff is gross to them, right? It's gross. So if these are images in their mind and their consciousness is like filled with violence or something, the beings might need their genetics and be like, ugh. They actually could be that way. And then the human is having a bad experience. It would be no different than a human dealing with a stray dog, right? Oh, the dog probably has fleas. It's like, oh my God, we gotta and the alien isn't judging. It's not saying, oh, how dare you, stupid human, in any way than we would judge the dog, but we would be pretty guarding ourselves, grossed out by it, right? It's exactly the same. And I can't tell that that's not what's happening. And I also can't tell that the human hasn't, cleared out their fears, because that's the only way you can handle a paranormal presence is by, approaching your own fears. So until those two are conquered by the person talking, then I don't know that they're not just projecting their own stuff. So it's very complex, very, very complex. Yeah.
I guess we would say too that some people have negative karma. Some people are quite saintly with good karma. There's a huge variation of human beings. So some people, if they generally have negative karma and they have bad ET experiences, well, maybe that's just their karma.
Yeah. Again, remember, so a very fascinating piece of their consciousness is that they go after the A-type personalities. That comes from George Knapp at the at Skinwalker Ranch. So of course, when you pull that out of context, how evil these beings are. They harass me and they're terrifying, right? And you get all like emotional about it. Well, but look at what they're doing, right? Like this is what a guru would do, right? A guru would like go after the hard-brained, egoed person, right? And be like, oh, look at that guy, thinks he knows everything. And he's like, you don't understand what reality is, man. And then they might tease you, might play with you, right? That's what they do with the military. That's what I see with the military, them doing that. So I have trouble. I don't want to say karma as much as I would say that the beings are responding to your thoughts and feelings much more than you realize. And if you are grossed out or by things, or you have thoughts that where you are kind of lean towards, I say as a violence or perversion as an example, again, I want to create moralities, but when you lean towards those things, you create a type of, energy about yourself, and the beings might be grossed out by that. So again, that's not to create a morality, but to, it could create an effect that the beings have in the way they handle the human. So yeah, it's complex. Yeah.
I just want to ask you further, like, what do you think of the MILAB idea, the military abduction, that maybe the Greys are getting a bad reputation, military manufacture artificial little Greys for the purpose of giving the Greys a bad reputation. Then separately, there's the idea of an interloper species of Greys. That's usually does two completely separate things.
I can't speak on MILABs, man. I just don't have any knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just read these stories, but who knows? I don't know, but it's just a hypothesis.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. I like that my beings made it nice and simple for me. And I just, I keep my knowledge to where my experience. I don't talk outside my knowledge.
You're very good at the way. I've had guests that would say all kinds of stuff, that I channel this, I channel that, but yeah, you really have a high credibility factor, Jeff. You're like a reporter on the scene. You're just reporting what you're seeing. You and Susie are just reporting what you saw. It's very high credibility.
Yeah. And if it's telepathic, which I guess would technically be a channel or something, I just say it's telepathic. I tell you it's telepathic, and I make you make your choice about that. So I'll let you make your choice about that. Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Is this it? Is this the end of our time, friends?
Yeah, I guess so. We're all answered out.
Answered out. That's great.
I'm just writing you a poem. I'll see if I can throw it up if it's any good.
That's great, man. Dude, your poems are really good, man. Barry, keep it up, man. You did such a good job. Your spirit, we all have ways that we kind of contribute, and that's your way. It's really awesome, and they're really good poems. I think I don't know what platform I was on, but I saw your poem. It was you put the poem out there, and then a lot of people were like, "Oh, wow, that's an amazing poem!" Like, you really move people with your poems, man. It's really
I saw that one. I saw one of your poems, Bear, and it was very good on UFOs.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really nice to get compliments. It's all ego. I admit it as much as anybody else.
Don't blame yourself, Bear. Yeah, I think it's on
like
Meetup. You wrote your poem on Meetup, but also on Gab. You're on Gab. Just to do a plug for what's your Gab account name? Is it called Bear?
No, but no, that's where I get most of my ego stroking, or I get stroked the most as far as my ego goes.
Let me make it clear: it's actually your consciousness. And then your ego takes it from there. But it's first your consciousness, and that's what this poetry is. It's your consciousness.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it, because I'm doing it for a reason. It doesn't have to be self-gratification, as Brian is so much into and admits to being so.
And when you touch heart to heart, that's consciousness, man. Heart to heart is consciousness.
It really feels good when people. I had a girl say she took it to her mom, who, and no, she was dying. And she said her mother really liked it, and that really affected me. I thought that was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah. It's, I'll never be famous, but at least, like you say, if you get to touch somebody's heart, that's important, I think.
Yeah, and that's all I'm doing too. I'm not. Yeah. I didn't publicize this book at all. I didn't do that at all. I gave it to some researchers, and that's it. And then that's the end of it. I haven't done anything else with it. And just the touching, helping people. Yeah.
Jeff Silver's second book, How to Be a Millionaire. Yeah, that's going to come out real soon.
How to use the UFO field to be a millionaire. Be the biggest joke of a book. Maybe
well, that was great. I'm glad I came out. I really learned a lot from your presentation. I think you're really coming on strong with this. This is wonderful.
Thanks, man.
And I can only hope, as you do, that you're going to touch more people, and they'll learn from you as well, as so many of us have had.
Thanks, man. That big thing is that mystic book. It's I think people don't know what to do with it half the time, but I had someone contact me and say that the book was communicating to them.
Good.
It's not mine, right? I'm like, it's not mine. Like I did it, I got it out, I did translate it, but it's theirs. And it had a vibe to it. I knew it had a vibe to it. And people were like reading it, and they're like getting this effect off of it. And I'm like,
yeah, I'm just the messenger.
Yeah, I'm just the messenger.
I'm not the one that originated all this. I'm in as much awe of it as anybody.
And it was easy to write for that reason. That's why it was easy and fast to write. So
yeah, that's why I'm envious of you, because you had so many experiences.
I had your mystic book. When you gave me the draft of the book, I went to Beverly's condo in Surrey. He said, we got to study this mystic book. We should do this, let me print this out for you. This is just when I first got it,
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, Mike Yan, he's interested in it too. He said, we should do this. We should sit down and just read this and meditate on this,
Yeah, I will do, it goes like this. I actually will do, the next presentation will be the last 3 contact events. And then I will start breaking down the mystic book, and I'll do presentations on every section of the mystic book. Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, I thought I'd wait for you to do it first. Yeah, you should do it. I was thinking of doing a meetup on it, but I want you to do it first.
Sweet. Yeah, and I'll do exercises, so there'll be things that people can take away and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. What do you think of coming down to the beach someday in the summer with Brian and myself or whoever?
Sure. Man. Yeah.
And no, but doing interviews to people. We don't have to tell them who you are, but you could be sort of holding the camera or be involved in something, because we're asking questions about how much people know about UFOs, whether they've known the guys, Jeff Selver, things like that. Well, we haven't asked that yet, but just to fathom the waters, right? It's really interesting what you get out of it.
I don't know that I would do that. I like that you guys do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's not your style. I don't think. I'm being facetious. I
Get
just thought.
Jeff to interview people. Yeah. I didn't suggest it. It's Barry's idea.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
good.
suggest
It's
dragging
fun.
down,
It's
down to
He's our
Stanley Park.
secret ace in the hole. No, that's not your style. You're more laid back about it. What you get to say, there's so much more entwined that you can't just come off the cuff like that. I think it's really hard for people to understand. And you say yourself, the amount of energies that you've gone along to learn what you have is incredible. I mean, you just don't learn it like that.
Yeah.
You're young still, or fairly young,
Thank you,
and
Bob.
you got a ways to go, but you've learned a lot through that time. Yeah. Well, we should go. What do you say, Ryan?
I did want to ask Jeff, in your talk, you said something. You said you can't experience something beyond the mind with the mind. And I tend to think of the difference between consciousness and thinking. People get confused. Does mind just mean awareness? And then there's the jumble of thinking. Like, I think you can't get beyond thinking just with thinking. You can't think your way through enlightenment. I think you got to quiet the thinking. I think this is what you're getting at, right?
Even the concept of no space, no time. You're not contemplating that with your brain, right? You can't get there. And that's why I said, what is infinity? Right? Your brain is not the one who's understanding that. Your consciousness is the one understanding that. So then it's really about a removing. You're kind of right, but there is a power to thinking, and thinking is coming from consciousness, and yet it's being distorted by the brain. And so it's that kind of very subtle thing where this consciousness is just listening to you. You're like, oh, okay, this is the nature of reality. I can't do that, and this is my limitation, and life sucks, and this is how hard it is. And consciousness just says, okay, and it's just repeating, what you tell it about the nature of reality. But if you're trying to expand something beyond the brain, you can't do that with just reading about it and using the brain's ways, just reading about it or watching a TV show. You have to experience it, and you have to experience to learn to remove the mind. And I don't want to confuse the thinking, because you can actually think from pure consciousness. So, but by creating a point of focus from the brain, then you are giving a space to experience just pure consciousness. And then you might have thoughts from pure consciousness, right? So I don't want to convolute the two about the thoughts, because thoughts is originating from that power, from that energy.
I'm gonna have to watch this video again to get this. Like, you have really good answers. I was thinking, you've had a guru for 20 years. Maybe next you'll be the guru. If he retires and he dies off, you'll be the guru next.
I don't know what I am, man. I'm some hybrid thing, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what I am.
I want to ask, do you have on your website, do you have a donate button? How can people donate to you? Do you have a PayPal function? Or because I know in the States, it's very difficult to get money from the United States to Canada. But in Canada, you can just do a bank transfer. Like, do you have a PayPal button or something on your website where people can donate to you?
What for?
Well, why not donate to your video costs? Donate to your book promotion. I mean, why not? If they want to donate, it just helps keeps the machinery of spreading the truth going, spreading awareness going.
It's like people always telling me, "Oh, you got to put a book out and make money." I don't want to make money. I'm just farting around. I'm doing as much as I can to spread whatever truths that I know or feel I know out there, and it's important to me. Money is not to think of. I mean, if I was destitute, not that I'm not close to it, but if I was really in trouble and tried to make money for them, well, that's okay. But it's got an essence to it. What did you say, Brian? The money is the love of money.
Well, I was quoting the Bible. The Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money.
Yeah, you corrected
which
me.
Means there's no problem getting money as long as you're not attached to it.
Right.
Yeah. But I really like what you said. The love of money is the root of all evil. And if you're motivated singularly by, or one of the major reasons by, going after the bucks, then I don't think you're going to do as well as honesty as you could.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be challenges to anybody who
Yeah.
has dollar bills, attached to their name. I think
Yeah.
to be more like Jesus and humble or supposedly and to do it for the sake of the knowledge and what you get from what other people will get for it is much more appropriate or much more easy to understand for most people.
Actually, I should be fair. People can donate to Vancouver UFO. They actually do have costs, and I think they have a PayPal button. So it's fair enough to donate to Vancouver UFO. I was just suggesting both,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
No,
right.
that's
No,
great.
that's good.
I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that. I probably won't do that.
I like your meditation thing, bud. You had me. I was really getting into it.
Oh, that's
remember
great.
how
Yeah, that
you-
was good.
I remember how you turned
Yeah.
to the camera on the profile
Yeah.
and you go up there and you say, well, visualize it. We all need that. We need a walkthrough process and things that we do. You're a good teacher. You think how the mind works and you simplify it as well as you can, both in your talks. And that's just an example of what you do, which is really good.
Thanks.
Yes,
man.
you did a great job.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Kristen. I appreciate that. Thank
It
you.
was a good guy. I meant to set my kitten was at the door right at that time. I had to open the door for the kitten. She's
Oh.
banging to get out.
That's funny because it's like a living room in the background. So I thought, oh, he's walking out into the living room. That's really
Oh, yeah. I keep telling people, oh yeah, I just bought a house in Point Grey here because of my
Looks
virtual
nice, buddy.
background.
Yeah, really
Great,
nice.
yeah, totally. Hey, Kristen.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Hey, I was going to ask you, when I see videos all the time of people, like I just saw one in California, Southern California, and they said it was an orange orb. Well, I could see it from the video, but, and it had something black in the middle. Is this something that's an actual ship and they're just putting lights around it to cover themselves, or is it interdimensional? I'm always curious what I'm actually looking at.
Yeah. So what can you describe it again? An orange orb? With,
Well, they said it was orange, and she said there was something black in the middle.
Yeah.
And then it was turning, and it was like energy. You could see this energy off of it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see the part, but she said then it turned white and it spun around and then it went straight up.
yeah. Okay. So unfortunately, it could be all of it.
Okay.
So yeah. So I actually have a video on my YouTube channel, and it's me saying Bob Lazar cooperation with my UFO video. So I filmed two UFOs out here, and I use them as kind of the big thing. It's on my website. You can just see these videos I have. But
Okay.
the point I'm making is that what the craft is doing is it has some kind of energy output that is interacting with the atmosphere. Now, it was moist that day because the clouds were low, which is normal for Vancouver. And then you could see the effect off of the craft of this thing, this orb. But Bob Lazar described something that matched, which is he said, when you have a high energy output from these anti-gravity devices, then they're naturally going to create lights because it's going to create a gas effect. You're basically lighting up the ions in the atmosphere. So it's going to naturally create a light around a device that is powering out so much anti-gravity, it's going to light up. And so I point out that that's what's happening in my video, because you can see it affecting the atmosphere. It moves around, and it's like the atmosphere is all moist, and you can see this almost film around this object. Now, I also have a contact event where it's a sphere that I physically see that was once lit up bright red. So it's like it turned off the anti-gravity or something, turned off the energy, and then it stopped, and now it's just a metal object. So that definitely is occurring where they can do that. They can, and I'm certain that they know how to change the lights of that so they can do it for a human impact. So yeah, you could literally be looking at a craft, but you could also be looking at energy. It could be plasma and a consciousness or something like that too. Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen Expedition Bigfoot? It's a TV show, and they just had in there, they're all out in the woods, and she is by herself, and she sees lights, and it looks like, to me, it's going to be a craft, because there's no way there's all these lights right out there. And then she sees an orange ball of light. And this was all in the same time that they had not seen, but something was throwing rocks at them,
Right.
the one guy. And it's like Bigfoot and aliens something has to be going on, that they're together.
Yeah.
It seemed,
Yeah.
and they weren't picking up on it. They were just, she's like, I'm seeing these weird lights. And it just seemed like I've heard before that they go hand in hand, but I
Yeah.
don't know if that's true.
Yeah, so great. Yeah, great observation. So this is what I'm convinced of from some of my personal experience as well too. The beings themselves are body makers. They can make bodies, and they are very aware of the different types of bodies that they can make. Consciousness bodies, bodies that can handle consciousness differently. I'm pretty convinced gray aliens made the Bigfoot. The species that is, I don't know that by fact. I've heard someone else say that too, but we don't really know yet. But the beings display a quantum or consciousness effect much similar to gray aliens. They have been seen as Sasquatch through and through have been seen as orbs. Orbs and lights have been seen associated with Sasquatch. Totally. There's a really, I used to have a whole thing on Sasquatch. I've kind of fell out of it now, but there was one of these guys from one of those shows has a story about him watching an orb, and then he's watching it, staring at it like, what the hell? And then he's hearing the crunching sound of crashing and stepping, but he's not seeing any crashing. He's watching it, this orb, and it's sounding all these crashing like it's taking steps, big, huge steps. What's his, I forget the other, there's another show I really liked, and forget the guy's name. And he's super credible. He used to do Survivor Man, the guy who did Survivor Man, because he's just
Shroud?
Les Stroud. So he has the,
Les
he has the
Stroud.
Les Stroud has a Bigfoot series. And because he's skeptical, he's fully skeptical, but he had experiences of things like he showed up on the beach and then something destroyed this huge sound of like a boulder being thrown, crashing a big tree. He's staring and nothing is moving. And it's like right in this area, this like dent in this forest. And it's like, what the hell? Crash, crash, crash. All paranormal. All of it is paranormal. And the beings, the Bigfoot is so many contacts, so many people talk about paranormal experiences. Les Stroud had a Bigfoot in his dreams that was sitting on him, literally, because it didn't like him being there. So it was sitting on him. He's in his sleeping bag. He feels the pressure. He feels the pressure of a Bigfoot sitting on him. And he scrambles out of his sleeping bag and nothing is there. So it didn't like him. Gray aliens go into your dreams, Bigfoot go into your dreams. Gray aliens show up as orbs, Bigfoot show up as orbs. They are some kind of cross species, human alien dimension thing. I have no idea fully what they are, but that's why they're never discovered. That's why they're not caught in pictures. That's why, because they're just like aliens, they're observer aware, so they know when you're looking. That's why you can have a drone and the drone can't find them.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like from the show. It's like they're always right there, and they're seeing things on was it FLIR cameras? They can see the images, the what is that?
Infrared?
Yeah. And they could see something there, but when they get close, then it's gone. They just never can catch it. Yeah. And so I was curious. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, I had a whole big. Once I saw that there was something paranormal going on with Bigfoot, I got really interested, and I spent about a couple months delving into everything I could find. Plus, Kristen, are you here in Vancouver? Are you in the area?
No, I'm in Seattle.
So in Seattle, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good to meet you. You've been around, so I've seen.
Yeah, and I absolutely love all this stuff that everybody speaks on, and I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah, we have a Bigfoot area out here, Pitt River, Pitt Lake, and well known. And I'm convinced, because I was like, well, okay, if this thing's paranormal and it's a spirit entity, then I should be able to communicate with it. And then I'm certain I all of a sudden started communicating with something, and I felt it was a bear man. It thought of itself as a bear man. I then had a synchronicity that kind of like confirmed this, which that same night, that Bigfoot are well known to exist within bear territory. So there's a bear territory, you're gonna have a Bigfoot territory. Or sorry, if that's the other way around. If it's a Bigfoot territory, it's gonna be existing in a bear territory. And that was I felt that thing I communicated with, that was a bear man. That's so weird, not an ape man, a bear man. So yeah, it's interesting stuff, man. I'm really convinced it's a species put on here by gray aliens, and I'm convinced of that. And because of just how strange they are, they're so paranormal, and that is so great alien to be paranormal. Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
so-
ask, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, are you gonna post this, your presentation so we can listen to it again?
Yes, it'll be posted on my personal YouTube channel as well as Vancouver UFO. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I want to ask about
Remember-
the Bigfoot, like you said, another profound statement that maybe the Greys made them. That could be true. I know in Buddhism, the Buddha described the Bigfoot, or called it a Rakshasa, as an interdimensional being. Like in my book on page 123, I got the levels of heaven in the central sphere. And the first, their lower being is kind of not the happiest rebirth, like it's not the best rebirth. But Buddha actually describes an interdimensional being. It comes and goes out of a dimension. But maybe that's actually made by gray aliens. But another thing that's quite profound about what you said is, if that's true, there's evidence for giants. Like back in the 1800s, it seems our society concealed evidence, like hundreds of bones are found all over America, published in books in the 1800s of bones like 7 feet, 9 foot larger. You can go online, there's considerable evidence for this, but it's kind of been erased from our collective memory. So did the Greys create giants like from in the way past? Like, what else did they create? It's a
I'm not
profound
speaking with
question.
certainty either. I can't speak with certainty, and I don't know anything about giants. I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
I know
beginning
that-
to feel. I'm beginning to feel like a petri dish. Hey, Brian, do you remember Vanessa over in England?
Yeah, of
And-
course. Yeah.
And
One
her
sec, guys, go
daughters,
ahead.
and her daughter Savan,
Yeah, we got videos
Remember-
of them.
and she took pictures and sent them to me. There was grays or whatever in her backyard, and she took pictures of them. And all she got from the pictures was the orbs. That was pretty interesting, you know. I guess doesn't show the aliens, but it shows their essence or their being.
You know, just like what Jeff said in his presentation, with the Kundalini rising with the gray, they can rise a Kundalini and just transform the form of the orb, travel around, and then take on physical form. And Crystal described that in her video over a year ago. She saw 3 orbs come into her bedroom about around 2010 and transformed to grays right in front of her. So that's
Pretty
consistent
cool.
with what Jeff just presented today. Yeah.
Interesting. What we
Uh,
can see is at their choice, at their beck and call.
Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
No pizza?
No, tell us. I actually had my internet was unstable for weeks. I apparently didn't know I should be on 5G versus, anyway. I didn't know that. The guy was confirming. He was actually really good to call my.
Oh, Jeff, I can do a commercial for TELUS in my 2 buildings where I live. I got fiber optic cables installed this week after 11 months, 1,000 speed upload and download. It's a religious experience. I can upload an hour-long video in 2 minutes, and then it's on the internet in 4 minutes. It's just nirvana.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You just produce one video after the other. That's great.
Hey, Jeff,
People say, are you promoting TELUS in this building?
Yeah, Kristen. Yeah.
did you say you lived back when there was dinosaurs?
No,
You said-
a Neanderthal. I have past life awareness of being a Denosphin.
Being
a Denosphin, you know, those Neanderthal. I was a Denosphin. I know it. I know the human souls were Denosphins, Neanderthals to Homo sapiens, and the souls of all of whoever, a bunch of people, I guess. But yeah, I was a Denosphin, not dinosaur. I don't know anything about dinosaurs. I know of dinosaurs, but not the dinosaur era.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a Denosphin, and my wife died, my kid died. It was pretty screwed up. And they were like, and you're alone, man. You're alone in nature. Yeah, it was so screwed up. There's so many screwed up memories, man. Humans have been living in decrepit scenarios for millions of years. I guess thousands of years, but yeah. I'll go into all that stuff much later.
Okay, I gotta go. So thanks, guys. It was awesome. I'll talk to you guys later.
Great. Take care, Kristen. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, gents. Should we call it a day?
Yes, thank you kindly, Jeff. Thank you very
Pleasure,
much.
my pleasure.
It's been
Thank you.
profound.
Thank you, Bear.
These 2 profundities.
Thank you, Bear. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rolf. Thank you, David. We never got to talk to Rolf. Rolf, where are you?
Say hi, Wolf. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I had to go to North Van and
Thank
I
you, Mark.
back and I see you guys are still talking.
Oh, he just let it play.
What's that remind you of?
He just
What's
let it
that
play,
rem-
yeah.
What's that remind you of? Eh?
Yeah, well, I have to listen to it later on.
That's
So,
good.
and now you had this lady on from Seattle. Well, at 3 o'clock, their Zoom is starting. If you
What's-
haven't had enough today, you can log into the Seattle UFO group.
Oh, is that them? But they, is that
That's not-
tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow, isn't it?
That's
No.
not
Susie?
Susie. Susie's tomorrow, isn't she?
Susie's tomorrow, yeah.
I think
I'm looking
Susie's
forward.
next week. No, Susie's next week on
Yeah.
the Saturday, and then
Oh, that's
she's
what it is,
with-
next week, yeah.
And she's
Next
with
week-
you guys on Sunday,
That's right, next week.
Saturday and
That's what I'm talking
Sunday.
Next week, I've got it marked for today.
No, it's next week.
about. You show up and there'll be no one will be there.
Double header of my two prize.
The Seattle is on Saturday at 3 o'clock, and Vancouver UFO is Sunday at 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
Susie
I got
Hansen.
that down. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to both. Lots of questions.
For sure, man.
She's my biggest influence, and Jeff is my number 2 influence.
Jeff's still my number one.
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
And Jeff was the one who pointed me to Susie. So it all began with Jeff in March of 2020, the Waves Coffee, with 5 of us there, right? Mimi, you, me, Rolf, and
Rolf wasn't there, no, Rolf.
oh,
Yeah.
the other one.
Rolf. He did the megalith Chinese.
Yeah, that fellow, Chinese fellow.
Chinese megaliths, yeah. I forget his name.
'Cause
Yeah,
I
so
remember
just, it
there's
was the
5
four of us. It was well,
Gordy?
What was it for? You know, I have photographs of that
Not
day.
Gordy, no.
The photographs are right on the website.
you, Mimi, not Gordy. It's not Gordy, right?
Oh,
It's
Bernie.
Bernie. It's Bernie. Yeah, Bernie and me. That's what it was. It was the 4 of us.
Just 4 of us.
It's 4 of us. Yeah.
That's a day in history.
Yeah.
You remember which day in March, but it's right on the website.
It's on the web. It's on the
I
meetup
took
still.
photos. I took photos
Yeah,
of it.
it's on the meetup still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know my first presentation was July 5th, 2020, because my awareness, the alien contact came out July 1st, 2019. So the year before. So I was really trying to pair it up. So yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to sign off.
Okay, gents, we'll all sign
Good.
off.
Good to
Good
see you
move,
again,
me too.
Rolf. Good to see you.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye,
for coming,
Joe.
everybody. Really appreciate
See you,
it.
buddy.
Okay, take care,
Bye.
guys. Till next time.
Yeah.